Veronica Page woke up to insistent pounding on the wall. The clock read 3 in the morning. At first, she decided to ignore the noise. The newlyweds in the neighboring apartment often quarreled. But when she heard the clinking of broken glass and a woman's scream, the woman flinched. This scream was different, desperate, full of terror. "Stop it! Liam, don't!" Naomi's voice trailed off. Veronica pulled on a robe and sprinted out into the hallway. The neighbor's door was ajar. There was a sepulchral silence inside. "Naomi?" Veronica called cautiously, pushing the door open. "Liam? Is everything okay?" Silence. Veronica took a few steps forward and froze. Naomi was lying on the living room floor, among the shards of a broken vase and an overturned coffee table. Her face was almost unrecognizable from the bruises, her blonde hair clotted with blood. Her eyes, wide open, stared into the void. Veronica screamed. Detective John Lim parked his car outside a modern apartment complex in the Liberty Village neighborhood. The police cars with blinkers and the tape enclosing the crime scene had already attracted the attention of the neighbors. A small crowd had gathered at the entrance, despite the early hour. "Detective Lim," he introduced himself, showing his badge to the officer on duty. "What do we got?" "Homicide. Female, 24 years old, allegedly beaten to death by her husband. Body was discovered by a neighbor around 3:15 this morning." Lim nodded and went into the apartment. It looked expensive and stylish, with minimalist design and large windows. Techies sure do make a good living, the detective thought, remembering that the victim's husband worked as a computer programmer. Naomi Brooks was lying on the living room floor, her body already being examined by the medical examiner. Lim walked leisurely around the room, noting the signs of struggle: overturned furniture, a broken vase, shards of glass. On the wall hung a painting, an abstract paysage, the only bright spot in the monochromatic interior. "Time of death?" Lim asked, squatting down next to the body. "Preliminarily between 2:30 and 3 in the morning, the expert replied. "Multiple injuries to the head and upper body. Looks like she was beaten with her hands and feet. Maybe some kind of object was used. We're looking for it." Lim scrutinized the victim's hands, skin marks under the nails. She resisted. "Any signs of sexual assault?" "None." The detective looked at the broken mirror in the hallway. Shards were scattered all over the floor. One of them reflected Naomi's dead face. "Husband?" Lim asked. "Absent. Wanted. Liam Brooks, 30, programmer at TechWave Systems." "When did they get married?" 3 days ago?" Lim shook his head. 3 days ago this couple was swearing eternal love, and now... "You detective?" The young officer turned to him. "The neighbor who found the body is willing to testify. She's in her apartment across the hall." "Bring her in." Veronica Page sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm morning. Her hands shook as she accepted a cup of tea from a police officer. "Mrs. Page, I'm Detective John Lim," he introduced himself, taking a seat in the chair across from her. "I realize you've been through quite a shock, but I need to ask you a few questions." The woman nodded, clutching her cup. "How long have you known the Brookses?" "Naomi moved here about 2 years ago. She was so bright, so talented. She worked at the Synthesis Gallery on Queen Street. Liam came into her life about a year ago. They just got married last Saturday." "Did you attend the wedding?" "No, it was small, but Naomi showed pictures. She looked so, happy." Lim made a note in his notebook. "Did you often hear them fighting?" Veronica hesitated a moment. "The last few weeks, yes. Especially since the wedding. Liam, he's very jealous. Controlling everything, who she dated, where she went. Naomi said he even checked her cell phone. Did she ever mention any physical abuse?" "No, never. I would have intervened." Veronica put her hand to her mouth. "God, yesterday. I should have called the police as soon as I heard them screaming. Tell me about last night. What did you hear?" "They came home around 9 p.m. It was quiet at first, but at about 11, a row broke out. Liam was yelling, accusing her of cheating on him. Then there was silence, and I thought they'd made up. And then at night..." Veronica sobbed. "It was around 3. First a knock, then the clink of broken glass. I heard Naomi screaming. She was begging him to stop. When I went out into the hallway, their door was ajar. There was silence inside. I went in and, found her. Did you see Liam? No. When I came in, there was no one in the apartment but Naomi. Lim nodded, writing down his statement. Mrs. Page, did Naomi ever mention anyone named Finn Elliott? Veronica tensed. Yes, he works with her at the gallery, a talented photographer. They were friends. Just friends? As far as I know, yeah. But Liam, he was obsessed with the idea that there was something between them. Naomi often said that his jealousy was suffocating her. When was the last time you saw Liam? Last night when they were coming home. We ran into each other in the elevator. He seemed tense, barely spoke. Thank you, Mrs. Page. If you think of anything else, let me know immediately. Back at the crime scene, Lim found forensics searching the apartment. Did you find anything interesting? He asked. The victim's computer and her phone have been seized for analysis, the technician replied. They also found this. He handed the detective a plastic bag with a small device inside. A camera? Yeah, a hidden camera, mounted behind a bookshelf, pointed at the couch. Appears to be recent. We'll check the rest of the room. Lim frowned. The camera confirmed what the neighbor said about Liam's pathological jealousy. In the bedroom, forensics found traces of blood on the bedding. Looks like it started here, the expert said. Then it moved to the living room. Lim opened the closet. Expensive men's clothes were neatly hung on shoulders. The lack of clutter indicated that Liam hadn't packed in a hurry. He probably had a bag prepared. On the bedside table was a silver-framed photo of Naomi and Liam on some beach, smiling, happy. Next to it was a wedding invitation with the date, August 27th, 3 days ago. Lim's phone rings. Detective Lim speaking. Sir, we checked the security cameras in the underground parking garage. Liam Brooks left the building in his car at 3:22 a.m. Make it an Audi, black, license plate number VE927K. Put out an intercept plan. Check the airport, train station, border crossings. This guy can't leave the city. Already done, sir. Lim returned to the living room. Naomi's smartphone was on the coffee table, screen smashed. The technicians had already copied the data and were preparing to take it away for forensics. I want to take a look at the messages, the detective said. The technician handed him a printout of Naomi's recent correspondence. Lim flipped through them quickly, stopping at the dialogue with the Finn contact. I need to see you. Tomorrow at the gallery? Sure. Is everything okay? I'll tell you when I meet you. Don't answer that number. L is checking my phone. The messages were dated yesterday morning. Lim checked outgoing calls. Naomi had called Finn yesterday afternoon. The conversation had lasted 7 minutes. Trace the whereabouts of this Finn Elliott, the detective ordered. We need to talk to him. The Synthesis Gallery was located in a trendy neighborhood on the west side of Queen Street. It had a glass facade, minimalist design, and inside was an open space with white walls hung with modern paintings. Lim found Finn Elliott in the back of the gallery, where he was setting up the lighting for a new exhibit. The young man with disheveled dark hair and an abstract print t-shirt didn't look shocked by the news of his colleague's death, but rather alarmed. Mr. Elliott? Detective John Lim, Toronto Police. We need to talk about Naomi Brooks. Finn nodded, lowering his head. I've already heard that. It's monstrous. I can't believe it. When was the last time you saw Naomi? Yesterday afternoon, here at the gallery. We were preparing a new exhibit. What did you two talk about? Finn paused. She was upset. Said the marriage was a mistake, that Liam was becoming more and more controlling. Did she mention physical abuse? No, but she was afraid it would come to that. Said he was always checking her cell phone, stalking her, insisting she quit the gallery. Why? Finn looked away. He was sure there was something between us. Is there? We're friends. Just friends. I'm gay, detective. I've had a partner for 3 years. Liam knew that, but he was still jealous. He was jealous of everything about her. Lim made a note in his notebook. Naomi texted you yesterday. She wanted to talk about something. Yeah, she was gonna leave him. She was planning on filing for divorce, asked if she could stay with me and my partner until she found a new place. Did you tell Liam about this? Finn was indignant. Of course not. I would never. Who else knew about her plans? I don't know. Maybe she talked to her parents. They live in Montreal. Lim nodded. If Liam contacts you, notify the police immediately. He's dangerous. Back at the station, Lim found that the technicians had already analyzed the data from the hidden camera found in Brooks's apartment. The camera was installed 2 days ago, the technician reported. The quality is good, there's sound. Lim reviewed the footage. Naomi and Finn had indeed met at the apartment yesterday afternoon. They were sitting on the couch, talking. No sign of a romantic relationship, just a normal conversation between two friends. Naomi was crying, and Finn was comforting her. "I can't do this anymore, Finn. He's watching my every move. He made a scene this morning because I went out to buy coffee without telling him." "Naomi, this is not a healthy relationship. You need to leave." "I know. I'll tell him tomorrow. I'll ask for a divorce. You can stay with Kevin and me until you decide what to do next." "Thanks. I don't know how I'll survive this conversation. He's going to be furious." The recording cut off as Finn walked away. Naomi walked him to the door. The next recording started in the evening. Liam and Naomi came home after dinner. They were silent at first, then Liam picked up Naomi's phone and started looking through the messages. "What are you doing?" Naomi asked. "Who's Finn?" Liam's voice sounded menacingly calm. "My coworker, you know him." "Why was he here today?" Naomi froze. "Are you following me?" "Answer the question." Naomi tried to snatch the phone, but Liam pushed her away. "You're cheating on me? 3 days after the wedding?" "No! Finn is my friend. He's gay." "Don't lie." The recording cut off as Liam threw something at the camera. Lim leaned back in his chair. The recording confirmed Finn and Veronica's testimony. Liam suffered from pathological jealousy, and it had led to tragedy. Lim's cell phone rang. "Detective Lim. Sir, we just got an update. Liam Brooks' car was spotted on the highway heading towards Buffalo. Border Patrol's been alerted. Tell them to proceed with caution. This man is dangerous and desperate." Lim hung up the phone and took another look at Naomi's picture. 3 days ago, she was a happy bride. Today, a murder victim. The broken mirror in the hallway seemed to symbolize her broken life and unfulfilled hopes. John Lim stopped the car outside a small cafe on the outskirts of Toronto. Through the glass window, he saw Rachel Foster, Naomi's best friend and witness at her wedding. She sat at a table by the window, tapping her fingers nervously on her coffee cup. The morning meeting at the precinct had been tense. The chief had demanded quick results. The murder of a young woman 3 days after her wedding had attracted media attention. The headlines were already screaming about a bloody wedding and a honeymoon with the killer. Lim walked into the cafe and headed toward the girl. Rachel was pale, dark circles under her eyes. Clearly, she hadn't slept all night. "Miss Foster, Detective John Lim. Thank you for seeing me." Rachel nodded, swallowing. "I still can't believe it. We danced at her wedding 3 days ago. Tell me about her. What was Naomi like?" "Bright." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Talented. She saw beauty in everything. When we met in college, she turned our drab dorm room into a gallery." "And Liam? How did they meet?" "At an art show about a year ago. He was a guest. She was one of the featured artists. He literally stalked her all evening, admiring her work. Naomi was flattered. Liam seemed successful, confident. We don't have many artists like that in our circle." "When did you notice the first signs of trouble?" Rachel hesitated. "About 3 months later." Liam started to control her. At first, imperceptibly, he called 10 times a day to see how she was doing. Then he got jealous of his coworkers, especially Finn. Once he caused a scene at the gallery, accusing Finn of flirting with Naomi. But they still got married? Naomi thought marriage would change everything, that Liam would feel more confident once they were officially a family. "How was the wedding?" "On the surface, perfect. Small ceremony, just close friends and parents." But there was a moment during the reception when Naomi was talking to the photographer, a casual conversation about shot composition. I saw Liam watching them, and his look. Rachel shuddered. There was something frightening about him. "Did you ever see any signs of abuse on Naomi?" "No, never. Liam hadn't hit her, at least not before." Rachel's voice shook. But the emotional pressure was intense. She started canceling meetings with friends, going out less. Said Liam preferred her at home. "Had Naomi told you about her plans to leave him?" Rachel looked up in surprise. She was planning to leave? Liam realized that Naomi hadn't shared that with everyone. We have information that she was planning a divorce. God. She didn't tell me anything, but at the wedding, when it was just the two of us in the ladies' room, she looked lost. She said, "Rach, I made a mistake." I thought it was just nerves. If you think of anything else that might help the investigation, contact me immediately. Back at the station, Lim found Naomi's phone records and a printout of her messages on his desk. He began to methodically go through the materials. Naomi's correspondence with Finn had been friendly, with no hint of romance. The messages supported the theory that she was planning to leave her husband. The last conversation with her parents was the day before the murder, a brief call, only 3 minutes long. Lim went through Liam's phone records. On the day of the murder, at 8 p.m., he called the Aurora restaurant, where the couple had dinner before the fateful events. Then a few calls to Naomi around 11. Apparently when he discovered she'd been seeing Finn. No calls after 3 a.m. "Sir," a young officer named Meredith Chang came into the office. "Forensics found something interesting in the Brooks apartment. They found 2 more cameras in the second bedroom that Naomi used as a studio, and another one in the bathroom. When were the cameras installed?" "According to the data, a week before the wedding. They were recording on a separate server that Liam had remote access to. He could view the footage from any device." Lim frowned. The picture was getting bleaker and bleaker. "Anything on the recordings?" "The techs are analyzing, but they've already found something interesting. Naomi was looking for something in the apartment, methodically checking bookshelves, vases, paintings. Looks like she suspected cameras." "When was this?" "The day before the murder." "What else?" "On the day of the wedding, there was footage of a violent argument. Liam accused her of flirting with the photographer." Lim shook his head. Even on the wedding day, Liam couldn't control his jealousy. "Any news about Liam?" "His car had been spotted at a gas station near the border, but Brooks himself was no longer there. We're assuming he ditched the car and took another vehicle. Check car share, cabs, buses. He can't just disappear." Naomi's parents flew in from Montreal on the morning flight. Lim met them in the visitors' room of the police station. Elizabeth Clark, Naomi's mother, was a pale replica of her daughter. The same blonde hair, the same blue eyes, now reddened with tears. Her husband, Richard, looked older than his years, as if he had aged a decade overnight. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, I'm so sorry for your loss," Lim began. "I understand how difficult this is for you, but we need your help to find the man who did this to your daughter." "Liam," Richard said in a muffled voice. "We never trusted him." "Why not?" "There was something about him." "Insincere," Elizabeth replied. "He seemed perfect, successful, polite, attentive, too perfect." "Did Naomi tell you about the problems in their relationship?" "Not directly." Elizabeth brushed away a tear. "She didn't want us to worry, but I sensed something was wrong. The last time we spoke, she seemed tense and quiet, as if she was afraid of being overheard." "When was that?" "The day before." Elizabeth couldn't finish the sentence. "Had she mentioned divorce plans?" The parents looked at each other. "No," Richard answered, "but that would explain her last words." "What words?" she said. "Mom, things are about to change. I'll be free." Lim's heart sank. Naomi was only hours away from freedom. "What can you tell us about Liam's past?" "Not much," Richard admitted. "He was from Vancouver. His parents had been killed in a car accident when he was 20. He studied at the University of British Columbia and worked for several technology companies." "Was he in a serious relationship before Naomi?" "He never talked about it. Naomi had mentioned that he'd been engaged before, but the engagement had broken off." Lim made a note of it. It was worth checking that information out. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, we're going to need a sample of Naomi's DNA to compare with the evidence found at the crime scene. Perhaps you have her hairbrush or toothbrush." "In our hotel room," Elizabeth replied. "We took some things from her apartment before you sealed it off." "Officer Chang will escort you out and pick up what you need." Lim nodded to his colleague. At the TechWave Systems office where Liam worked, Lim was greeted by Human Resources Director Greg Thompson, a nervous man in an expensive suit. "This is a terrible tragedy, Detective. We're all shocked." How long has Liam Brooks been with the company? About 2 years. He's one of our lead developers. What's his relationship with his coworkers? Thompson's confused. Liam, kept to himself, didn't participate in corporate events, rarely socialized with colleagues outside of work, but he was impeccable as a professional. Did you ever notice any signs of aggressive behavior? No, never. He was always calm, focused, although, in the last few months, he started taking off in the middle of the day. He'd say he had urgent business, and he was always checking his cell phone. Did he mention his personal life? Only about his upcoming wedding. He seemed happy. No one could have guessed. I need to talk to his closest coworkers and check out his workspace. Thompson took Liam to the open space where the programmers worked. Liam's workplace was perfectly organized. Not a single piece of paper, the monitor wiped clean. Naomi's picture in a simple frame stood on the desk. The staff sitting next to Liam told little new. Everyone described him as withdrawn, focused on work, not inclined to talk about his personal life. No one saw any signs of aggression or uncontrollable jealousy. He was like a ghost, said one coworker. He'd come in, do his job, and leave. I don't know if he had a single friend in the office. Back at the station, Lim found the results of Liam's background check on his desk. The story about his dead parents had checked out. They had indeed died in a car accident 10 years ago. Liam graduated from university with honors, worked for several companies in Vancouver, then moved to Toronto. Information about a former engagement was also confirmed. Liam was engaged to a girl named Emma Harris, but the engagement was called off a month before the supposed wedding. No reason was given in the report. Officer Chang, find this Emma Harris. I need to talk to her. I'm on it, sir. She lives in Calgary, works as a nurse. I contacted the local police and they promised to help set up a video call. That's great. Cell phone rings. Any news on Liam? Cameras picked him up at a bus station in Buffalo 6 hours ago. He bought a ticket to New York. The FBI has been alerted they're conducting surveillance at the station. Lim nodded and went back to studying the materials. Phone calls, bank statements, camera footage. It all added up to a picture of obsession. Liam wasn't just jealous of Naomi, he was methodically watching her every move. Bank statements showed surveillance camera purchases the week before the wedding. Liam had also withdrawn a large sum of cash the day before the murder, obviously preparing for a getaway. Liam's cell phone rang. It was the lab tech. Detective, we analyzed the security footage from Brooks's apartment. There's something interesting. The camera in Naomi's studio captured the moment she discovered the surveillance device. It was the night before the murder. What did she do? She didn't remove it. Instead, she looked directly into the camera and said, I know you're watching me, Liam. This ends tomorrow. Then she took out her phone and texted. To Finn Elliott? Yes, judging by the timing, it was the same message about the meeting. Lim realized Naomi had decided to act when she discovered the cameras. She was planning to leave her husband the next day. Any recordings from the night of the murder? Yeah, but the audio quality's not great. They got back from the restaurant around 9 o'clock. Liam seemed tense. They barely spoke until he picked up her phone and saw the texts from Finn. And then, a fight broke out. Liam accused her of cheating. She denied it. He showed her a tape of her meeting Finn at the apartment. She yelled that she was entitled to friends, that she was tired of his control. Then she said she wanted a divorce. What happened next? The tape cuts out. Liam spotted the camera in the living room and broke it. The other cameras only picked up the sounds of a struggle. Apparently, the fight moved to the bedroom, then back to the living room. Lim felt a heaviness in his chest. Naomi was so close to freedom. The door to the office opened and Officer Chang walked in. Sir, the video call with Emma Harris is ready. Lim activated the screen on the wall. A young woman with a serious face and bunched brown hair appeared on it. She looked worried. Miss Harris, thank you for agreeing to talk. I'm Detective John Lim with the Toronto Police. Calgary Police said this is about Liam Brooks. What did he do? We suspect him of killing his wife, Naomi Brooks. They were married 3 days ago. Emma went pale. Oh my God, he got married? And already? Miss Harris, you were engaged to Liam Brooks about 3 years ago, correct? Yes, about 2.5 years ago. We were supposed to get married, but I broke it off a month before the wedding. Why? Emma took a deep breath. Liam was obsessed with control. At first it seemed like a concern. He called 10 times a day, wanting to know where I was, who I was with. Then he started checking my texts, my emails, installed a location tracking app on my phone. Did he ever get physically aggressive? No, never. But his jealousy became increasingly irrational. He accused me of having affairs with coworkers, friends, even my cousin. The final straw was when I discovered he had installed a camera in our bedroom. Lim glanced over to Officer Chang. History was repeating itself. What happened when you broke off the engagement? He begged me to give him another chance. Promised to change, go to counseling. I refused. Then he started calling at night, stalking me. I filed a harassment report. After a warning from the police, he disappeared from my life. I heard he moved from Vancouver. Toronto, Lim nodded. Miss Harris, if Liam contacts you, notify the police immediately. He's a wanted man and could be dangerous. I understand. God, that poor woman. I should have warned her. If I'd known. You couldn't have known, Miss Harris. Thank you for your cooperation. Lim disconnected the video link and leaned back in his chair. The picture was becoming clearer and clearer. Liam had a history of obsessive control. But what made him go from surveillance to murder? Toward evening, Liam drove to the synthesis gallery again to talk to Finn. The text had recovered the last message Naomi had sent. It had been addressed to him. I'll tell Liam everything today, don't call me. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Finn looked pale and tired when Lim found him at his desk in the administrative part of the gallery. Did you get the last message from Naomi? The detective asked, showing the printout. Finn nodded. Yes, around 5 o'clock this evening. I replied that I supported her decision and wished her luck. That was the last I heard from her. Did you see her that day? Only in the morning, at the gallery. She was preparing for a new exhibition. What was her mood? Determined. She said she was tired of living in a cage. She wanted to take back control of her life. Did you know about the cameras in their apartment? Finn flinched. Cameras? No, she didn't say anything about cameras, but she did mention that Liam was watching her. I thought she meant checking her phone, her messages. Liam installed cameras all over the apartment the week before the wedding. Naomi found them the day before the murder. Oh my God. Finn went even paler. This is more than jealousy. This is crazy. You said Liam knew you were gay, but he was still jealous. Are you sure he knew? Yeah, Naomi told him early on in their relationship. She even introduced him to my partner Kevin, but Liam still saw me as a threat. Lim wondered. Maybe it wasn't about Finn himself, but about the fact that Naomi was hiding her plans to leave her husband. When had Naomi decided to get a divorce? I think she'd been thinking about it for a while. But she made her final decision a few days before the wedding. She called me in tears, saying she couldn't do it, but she was afraid to cancel the ceremony. Why did she get married after all? Pressure. Her parents spent money on the wedding, guests invited, everything organized. Plus, she was afraid of Liam's reaction. He's been weird before. Weird when she tried to take a break from the relationship. Lim nodded. That explained why Naomi hadn't even told her best friend about her plans. She was afraid Liam would find out before the time was up. Where do you think he might have run off to? Finn wondered. Naomi had once mentioned that Liam had a friend in New York, a former colleague from Vancouver, I think. They'd kept in touch. Do you remember the name? Was it Alex, I think? Or Alan? Something with an A. Lim made a note of it. It could be a useful lead. The detective's cell phone rang. Lim speaking. Sir, we have some news. Officer Chang's voice sounded excited. The FBI has apprehended Liam Brooks in New York City at the bus station. He put up no resistance. He'll be extradited tomorrow morning. Good work. Get everything ready for the interrogation. Lim turned to Finn. Liam's in custody. Justice will be served. But Finn's face remained grim. It won't bring Naomi back, he said quietly. And it won't make me feel like I could have done more. Warn her. Protect her. It's not your fault, Lim said firmly. The only guilty party here is Liam Brooks, and he will answer for everything. Back at the station, Lim thought about Naomi, about her longing for freedom, about dreams that would never come true, about how even knowing Liam's jealous nature, no one could have guessed he was capable of murder. In his jacket pocket was a photograph of the crime scene, a broken mirror in the hallway. The shards reflected different parts of the room, creating a distorted, fragmented picture. Just like that, the investigation was now being put together from pieces. Testimony, evidence, facts. Tomorrow would be the most difficult stage, face to face with the killer. Liam Brooks was taken to the Toronto police station in the early morning hours. John Lim watched through a one-way mirror as the escort ushered the suspect into the interrogation room. Liam looked shabby, wrinkled clothes, stubble on his chin, a dull look in his eyes. No resemblance to the successful programmer whose picture Lim had seen on the TechWave Systems website. "How do you want to structure the interrogation?" Officer Chang asked, standing next to the detective. "No aggression," Lim replied. "He's expecting that. Instead, I'll let him feel like I understand his motives." "But you don't?" "Of course not. But it's the quickest way to get a confession." Lim walked into the interrogation room and sat down quietly across from Liam. He looked up, his eyes red from sleep, but surprisingly clear. "Liam Brooks," the detective began. "I'm Detective John Lim. Do you understand why you're here?" Liam nodded slowly, not saying a word. "You've been charged with the murder of Naomi Brooks, your wife. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say?" "I know my rights." Liam's voice was quiet but firm. "I won't call a lawyer." "Are you sure? This is a serious charge." "I'm sure." Liam looked straight into the detective's eyes. "Why delay the inevitable?" Lim pulled out the case file and opened it slowly. "Tell me about your marriage, Liam." A strange smile touched the suspect's lips. "Our marriage? It lasted 3 days. Nothing to tell. And before you were married? You were together for about a year, right?" 362 days, Liam answered accurately. "From the moment I'd seen her at the Frontiers of Perception exhibit at the Synthesis Gallery. Love at first sight? Something more." Liam's eyes had a strange expression in them. "I saw her, and the world changed. Everything around me became pale, insignificant. Only she shone like a star in the night sky." "Sounds poetic for a programmer," Lim remarked. "Naomi taught me to see beauty. Before her, I lived by numbers, codes, logical algorithms. She showed me a different way of seeing the world. And yet you killed her." Liam's face contorted as if in physical pain. "I loved her," he whispered. "More than anything in the world. So much so that you decided to install security cameras all over the apartment? So much so that you checked her every text message? That's not love, Liam. That's obsession. You don't understand." Liam shook his head. "I had to protect her. From who? From anyone who could use her, hurt her. From Finn Elliott, who pretended to be a friend but wanted more." "Finn's gay, Liam. He has a partner." Liam grinned bitterly. "So she told you that too? It's a convenient myth, isn't it? I saw the way he looked at her. No man looks at a woman like that if he only wants friendship." Lim realized that logical arguments were useless here. Liam had created his own reality where everyone was a threat to his marriage. "Let's talk about that night, Liam. About what happened after dinner at the Aurora restaurant." Liam closed his eyes, as if trying to ward off the memories. It had been a good night. We'd celebrated 3 days since our wedding day. Naomi was beautiful, smiling, everything was perfect. And then we got home and I saw a text on her phone. From him. Liam practically spit out the last word. "Everything's going to be okay. A new life starts tomorrow." "What new life?" "She just started a new life with me." "You checked her phone without permission?" "It was my duty as a husband to protect our marriage." "And then what did you do?" I asked her. I asked her directly what the message meant, and she, Liam's voice shook. She laughed, said she was tired of me, that she was only getting married because she was afraid of canceling the wedding, that she'd go to him tomorrow. Lim checked the tapes. "The cameras you installed have a different conversation. Naomi said she wanted a divorce, that she was tired of being controlled by you." "She's been lying to me this whole time," Liam suddenly shouted, pounding his fist on the table. "Pretending to love me while she was planning to run away. With him." "She wasn't cheating on you, Liam. All the evidence points to that. I saw them together, in our apartment. He was hugging her, like a friend. She was crying because of your control, Liam. Because you were smothering her with your jealousy. Liam shook his head, unwilling to accept the obvious. What happened after she said she wanted a divorce? Lim continued. Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Liam rubbed his temples. I was so angry. I felt betrayed. Everything went red in front of my eyes. I grabbed her by the shoulders, wanting her to look me in the eye and tell me again that she didn't love me anymore. And then what? She pushed me away, said I was crazy, that she never loved me, that she married by mistake. Liam's voice trembled. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted her to stop talking, stop saying those horrible things. Did you hit her? Liam covered his face with his hands. Yes, he barely audibly said. Once. She fell on the bed. I thought she was just faking it. But when she got up, there was fear in her eyes, real fear. She'd never looked at me like that before. What happened next? She ran into the living room, tried to get to the door, screaming that I was crazy, that she'd call the police. I chased her down, grabbed her arm. She hit me with the vase. Here. Liam pointed to the scar above his eyebrow. That's when I lost control. You beat her to death. I didn't mean to, Liam shouted, tears in his eyes. I just wanted her to stop talking, to stop screaming those horrible things. I loved her. I would have given my life for her. Instead, you took her life, Lim said coldly, because you couldn't bear to see her free. Liam lowered his head. When I came to, she was lying on the floor. She wasn't moving. I tried to wake her up, performed CPR, heart massage, but it was too late. And you ran away. I couldn't stay there, couldn't see what I'd done. Lim pulled a picture of Naomi out of the folder, happy, smiling, full of life, and placed it in front of Liam. That's what you've taken from the world, Liam. A talented artist, a loving daughter, a loyal friend, a woman who could have lived a long, meaningful life. I know, Liam whispered. I deserve to be punished. Where were you planning on hiding? Mexico. I had a contact who could help with the new paperwork. What made you give yourself up to the FBI so easily? Liam looked up in pain. I realized I couldn't run away from myself, from what I'd done. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, hear her last words. What did she say? I never loved you. That was the final blow, worse than a vase to the head. Lim looked at Liam carefully. There was no remorse in his eyes, just self-pity. Emma Harris, the detective said, and Liam flinched. We talked to her. History repeats itself, doesn't it, Liam? The control, the surveillance, the morbid jealousy. It was different, Liam muttered. Emma really was cheating on me. We have no proof of that. Just your word. Just like there's no proof of Naomi cheating. Just your fantasies. You don't understand! Liam hit the table again. They all betray. They promise to love, and then they walk away. How's your mother? Lim asked, and Liam froze. What? Your mother. She left your father when you were 15, 2 years before they died, didn't she? Liam's face went pale. Where did you... It's my job, Liam, to find out the truth. Liam leaned forward. Your father beat your mother. Neighbors called the police 3 times. Eventually, she found the strength to leave. She left us, Liam screamed. She left me with him. She tried to take you away, but the court awarded custody to your father. The system failed. She fought for 2 years trying to get you back. You're lying! She never called once! Your father blocked all contact. We found statements she filed with the Vancouver police. She never stopped fighting for you, Liam. Tears rolled down Liam's cheeks. Then they died in the accident. Lim continued. Your father was driving drunk. Your mother was a passenger. She agreed to a meeting to discuss your custody. It wasn't an accident, was it? Your father drove the car into the cliff on purpose. Stop it! Grunts, Liam shouted. Stop digging into my past! But that's where the roots of everything are, Liam. You grew up watching your father control your mother. You saw his jealousy, his violence, and deep down you were afraid you were the same. I'm not, Liam's voice broke. I loved Naomi. I never wanted to hurt her. But you did, because you couldn't let go, because control is more important to you than love. Liam lowered his head, sobbing like a child. I want to make an official statement, he finally said through his tears. I admit my guilt. The formal confession took more than 2 hours. Liam detailed the events of that night, from dinner at the Aurora restaurant to the moment he'd left the apartment, leaving Naomi's body on the living room floor. "I should have called an ambulance," he said at the end. "Maybe she could have been saved. I just panicked." The medical examiner's office found that Naomi died of a head injury within minutes of the attack. Help wouldn't have saved her. As Liam was led away to his cell, Lim sat at his desk for a long time, poring over the crime scene photos, the broken mirror, the overturned coffee table, the shattered vase, and Naomi's body, frail, broken. Officer Chang entered the room with a cup of coffee. "You got what you wanted," she said. "A full confession." "Yes," Lim nodded. "But at what cost? What do you mean?" To solve this case, we dug into Liam's past, talked to his ex-fiancée, Naomi's friends, his parents, but no one, not one person, saw what was behind the mask of the caring fiancé. No one could have prevented the tragedy. "You can't blame yourself," Chang said softly. "Naomi hid her problems from the people closest to her. Out of fear." Lim shook his head. She was afraid of Liam, afraid of his reaction, and she was right. "What do you mean?" "I think Naomi knew Liam was dangerous. She felt it instinctively. That's why she didn't call off the wedding at the last minute, because she was afraid he'd snap. She decided to wait a little longer so she could leave quietly. When she found the cameras, she realized she couldn't wait any longer. That explains why she gave the impression of intimacy with Finn," Chang said thoughtfully. "She wanted Liam to think she had support, a place to go." "Exactly. But that plan backfired on her. Liam saw it as not just a departure, but a betrayal, and he couldn't accept it." Lim gathered up the photos and closed the case file. Technically, the investigation was complete. The killer had been caught, a confession had been obtained, but the detective knew that true closure of this story was impossible. A talented, bright woman's life had been cut short because of false notions of love and ownership. "Detective, you have a call." The voice of the duty officer interrupted his thoughts. "Naomi's parents want to know if they can pick up the body for burial." Lim nodded. Life went on, for everyone except Naomi. A week later, Lim stood in the synthesis gallery, looking at the paintings on the walls. Naomi Brooks' exhibit had opened despite the tragedy. It was the will of her parents and friends. "She would have wanted her work to be seen," Finn said, approaching the detective. "It was her dream to have a solo exhibition." Lim nodded, studying the abstract canvas in front of him, an explosion of colors, among them the outline of a human figure trying to break out of some kind of cocoon. "Liberation," he read the title. "She wrote it a month before the wedding," Finn explained. "Said it was a self-portrait of her soul. She felt trapped." "Yeah, but she believed that one day she'd be free," Finn said quietly. "Did you know Liam tried to kill himself in prison?" "I know. He was transferred to a psychiatric ward." "Do you think he really loved her?" Lim stared at the painting for a long time before answering. "I think he loved the idea of her, the image he created in his head. But the real Naomi, the free-spirited, creative, independent Naomi, he never accepted, because he couldn't control her." "That's not love," Finn said quietly. "No," Lim agreed. "Real love doesn't suffocate, it gives you air." The detective took another look at the bright, vibrant pictures. Naomi continued to speak through her art about the quest for freedom, the search for self, the beauty of the world. In a way, she had won. Her voice was louder than the screams of her killer. Leaving the gallery, Lim noticed a young couple looking at the exhibition poster. The girl was saying something fervently to her companion, who was listening with a tense face. For a moment, Lim thought he saw the same obsession in the young man's eyes that Liam had. "The signs are always there," the detective thought. "We just don't always know how to read them." He made a mental note to talk to the precinct about the possibility of creating an educational program on recognizing the signs of domestic violence. It might not save everyone, but even one life saved was worth the effort. The sun was setting, coloring the Toronto sky in the same fiery hues that dominated Naomi's paintings. Lim looked up at the sky and remembered the words his grandmother often repeated: "Behind every death is a lesson for the living." The lesson of this tragedy was simple and complex at the same time. True love never becomes a cage, and everyone has the right to freedom, even if the path to it sometimes runs through pain and fear.